TNA Wrestling crossed that line again with another interesting, action-packed filled episode of Impact as we are just 1 week away from Unbreakable next Thursday on the TNA Plus app. Also, next week, another edition of Impact. So we've got a stacked week, Easter week over here in the UK next week, which means we'll be bringing you those reviews early on Good Friday. So what better way to tuck into those Easter eggs and look at my egg head on Easter on Good Friday. It's going to be a big one for TNA this weekend. Obviously, the WrestleMania week as well. Huge, huge, week of wrestling coming up, and TNA. I've got it made, really. Unbreakable, then Impact Wrestling, lots of stuff to start with. And you know what? What better way to do it than to get started with it straight away? Now, I'm not, I'm not too well. Is it going to be fair for me to do Unbreakable predictions next week? I don't know because we may have already have known who wins. So, with with that being said, let me bring up on Wikipedia, by the way, the Unbreakable card, and just to see if it's actually done, because it's a difficult one because I think some of the matches may be happening next week. I don't know. So there is matches happening next week, which is a bit of a shame. Um, we'll go with them all that's been announced, barring one. We won't do the TNA tournament final because we don't know who's in it. And by the time I go to review this, I would have watched both. So it wouldn't be fair. So we'll do the other five matches that are on the card, other than that one, for fairness, of course. Right. Anyway, enough about me talking about what we're going to do. Let's get on with it. Ethan Page, Frankie Kazarian, and Santino Marella kick off TNA this week, and Ethan Page very happy to be back in his in this spiritual home, really, of TNA, and he wants to become TNA World Heavyweight Champion at Rebellion on the 27th, and we've not got long for that. We've got 2 weeks until Rebellion as well, by the way. Another bank holiday weekend actually over here in the UK for Rebellion, which is I think it's bank holiday weekend anyway. Be good if it is, although I'd have watched it before then. But anyway, you know, he says that he kind of already knew what he needs to know about Joe Hendry. He's got a catchy song, he's got a tight shirt, he's got Slim Shady haircut, and he basically vows Ethan Page to bring the TNA title to NXT. But Frankie Kazarian interrupts and comes out with that call your shot gauntlet, and they exchange insults. But out comes Santino Marella with some worrying news. Now, last week, if you remember, Joe Hendry got into a fight on Impact and has seemingly injured the shoulder. And Santino Marella said tonight Joe Hendry will be basically updating us on his condition. And it will affect both of them. Well, that's a worrying start to Impact, and Joe Hendry it could be at such the wrong time for an injury. If that's indeed the case, we'll find out when we go through the Impact review. Let's hope not, that's for sure. But as the opening part of Impact wraps up, we go to the back and Steve Macklin. And he's in action in the TNA International Championship tournament match a bit later on tonight. And he says he knows the system will be lurking, but he doesn't need the armory or anyone watching his back. And literally, as he says that, like he wasn't lurking already, Eric Young is there. And he says that the system will get involved and it'll be bad. And he said whether Macklin likes it or not, he's going to have his back, and so will the armory. And Macklin basically turned around and said, stay out of my business. And Macklin isn't happy. He doesn't trust anybody right now. That's for sure. Macklin is not someone that you want to piss off, to be quite honest with you, EY. And I know you've got the Northern Armory there to back you up, but Macklin could quite easily go through them all and cause some mayhem if you decide to get involved. But we're going to go back to the Impact Zone now for match number one of the evening. And Jesus, what a match this was. Ace Austin, Mustafa Ali. You know, these two guys are just, they're so well matched in the ring. There's so much good stuff about them. And, you know, the only, and again, there's sometimes this is kind of, I'm pretty sure I said this last week on TNA, and I actually said this, funny enough, on NWA this week, for those of you that know watched the NWA review. Interference, and it's starting a little bit to grate on me now, where so many matches have to seemingly need a bit of interference. Now we know that Mustafa Ali's got the good hands. We know he's got Tasha Steelz, and there is one point where Ace just flies out on all of them. But near the bottom end of this match, Tasha Steelz hands Ali a chair, and he gets to when he goes to wind up the chair. But he looks at ringside and he sees a very familiar foe. That foe is Mike Santana. And as Ali tries to turn in motion and sneak a chair shot at Santana, Santana avoids it. Ali basically hangtowns it out there as well. But that's not before he does lay Austin out with a chair. And it's just, and that's why the DQ happened, which was what I was trying to allude to as I was looking down at my notes, getting a bit confused. Is that I get it, and how we see it a lot with the system. We see interference with the system. As I said, I saw it in NWA this week. All the matches had interference, and it just starts to be a point where Ace Austin and Mustafa Ali didn't need interference. It was brilliant, you know. It was a really good match. I get it. There's a story to be told, and we're going to get to it now because when the show comes back from a break, Harley, Sky, and Hotch hurrying through the backstage area to make it into the parking lot. And they quickly get in this car and says to the driver, "Hit it." And the driver turns around to reveal himself, and it is indeed Mike Santana. Where are we going? Which was quite funny. I did like that. But unnecessary again, as I said before, and apologies for getting a bit confused because I knew that he'd used the chair and he used it again. Um, it's just to a point where I don't. We don't need interference every single match. I know there's a couple of matches more, or at least one more match on TNA which has interference this week, and it's just just getting a bit tedious with it. And it's not just TNA; it's happening everywhere, and it's just like why we've gone from every match being uber competitive and strong style to every match needing interference. Just tone down the interference a little bit and give us a bit more action because Ace Austin and Mustafa Ali is an incredible match. And also with Ace Austin, we need to see him in a program, get him involved in something. But yeah, it was just a little bit annoying. Anyway, now look, this week's TNA was very system heavy, hence the slogan on my on the video that you're going to be watching. All systems go. We come into next, and out comes Moose, along with his system compadres, and as he starts cutting a promo, Cody Deaner comes in the ring, and he's basically said if Cody Deaner can last 2 minutes, he can have a championship match. Well, we did do that. And he did last 2 minutes. Wasn't much more than 2 minutes. However, he did get the 2 minutes and he did get the opportunity to take on an X Division match. And as soon as the bell, it only lasted 2 minutes. The match then continues to become an X Division Championship match. And Moose hits the spear and beats him. Which is just, it was brilliant. And to be fair, it was great for Cody Deaner to get the 2 minutes for it to become a title match. And then you did kind of wonder how long it would last once it kind of continued into the championship match from Moose. But it was quite funny. But then at the end of that match, JDC, Brian Myers, some of the system, they continue the beatdown. Out comes the Rascals, Trey Miguel and Zachary Wentz, and that, after the commercial break, was our next match. It was indeed the system against Trey Miguel, Zachary Wentz. Again, lots of fast-paced action in this, and even with JDC and Brian Myers are veterans of this, and they complement this so well with that fast-paced action that you're going to get with the Rascals. I really did enjoy it. And I just, there was some good cheap heel tactics in there as well from the system. I really enjoyed it. Again, every time they picked up the pace, they would do something, and it would it would be the pace killer. It would settle down a little bit, and then the Rascals would come back and quicken that pace up. And every so often, they would, JDC and Brian Myers would slow it down. They would hit a move, and it's had such a good flow to the match. I really enjoyed it. I thought it was a great match. But I'm not saying interference on this one, but there was a legal assist. There was a suplex attempt tried. Someone tried to suplex Myers into the ring. They put the leg, the old school one where they pull the leg, he falls on top, and they hold the legs down for the free. Bit of an old school way of doing it, and I did like that. To be fair, I did think that was a very cheap way of getting the win. But I tell you what, like I said, these four it was just the match was so well complemented. The pace was great. It had a great flow to it. The system pick up another vital win, and so far, so good for the system. Clean sweep on impacts thus far, and I really enjoyed it. Again, and that's where I don't mind the heel tactics like that because it wasn't technically interference. It wasn't like Alicia Edwards was involved or someone was involved. It was literally the tag partner, which is fine. I can handle that. But a great win, nevertheless, for the system and a great tag team match. Then we had the triple threat match for the International Championship qualifier. The final takes place at Unbreakable this coming Thursday, which was AJ Francis. He was with Casey Navarro. It was Mance Warner, who was with Steph Delander, and of course Sammy Callahan. And I believe there was no DQs, if I'm right in thinking in this. Um, Steph Delander does play a vital role at ringside in this. He Callahan though, when Mace Warner had momentum, he grabs a flyer and gave Mace Warner a paper cut in between the fingers. Jesus. And then there was a chair duel between them, which was actually really good on this. And AJ Francis does the bits in the ring, and he actually picks up a surprise victory, hits the TFL. Or do you know what? I mean, you could say it arguably a surprise, but not really when you look at the grander scheme of things and what he's done since he's been in TNA. It's maybe not as big a surprise as what people think, but it was a it was a fun triple threat match. I actually enjoyed it. I don't think a lot of people, to be fair, would have probably looked at that and probably gone, not for me. But I tell you what, you need to look at it because it really was actually a really good match. To be fair, I actually enjoyed it. But now, over the last few weeks, you've heard me say that Mance Warner and Sammy Callahan need to have a kind of Monsters Ball style match. And there's where I think they were going. But they need to, no. They needed it to be more insane than that, didn't they? And Callahan was fired up at the back. He's asking Santino, what the hell was that? And he talked, they were talking about how violent Callahan and Warner got. And he says, this isn't a joke. He wants to finish things once and for all. And Callahan demands a barbed wire massacre match for Unbreakable. And of course, Santino Marella agrees. Of course he is. I mean, why not, right? Of course you're going to. Just that's exactly the match, excuse me, that they're going to need. Barbed wire massacre is going to be absolutely crazy next week. I can't wait for it, to be fair. I'm really looking forward to Barbed Wire Massacre. Just going to be nuts, I think's the right word for it. Just wait till next week. Is all I say for that. Anyway, going back to the Impact Zone and our guest that we had on very, very recently, Leon Slater, who you can see if you go into the playlists, special guest interviews. He's right at the bottom. It's about 190 odd in there. Eric Bischoff, DDP, Buff Bagwell, Jake Roberts, just to name a few. Matt Cardona, even Brian Myers, Eddie Edwards, the system, Moose. Anyway, he's at the bottom of that pile right now. Leon Slater, go and check it out. Thanks to the 6,000 of you that have done already. And his match this week was against Ryan Nemeth. Now, for those of you that need a history lesson, Ryan Nemeth, of course, turning his back, along with Nick Nemeth, on the Hardys after that brutal cage match. And it's you know, well, Slater's turn to get some revenge. And you know what? It was kind of interesting because Slater got off to the very quick start that you can imagine it. Ryan Nemeth, slowed that pace down into his favor, and again, it was, he soon began every time, it kind of like a little bit different to the other matches where I was saying that the fast paced guys were doing it and then they were getting sort of slowed down. It was the other way around. So Leon was getting slowed down, but every now and again he would come out and do and some incredible stuff. And my God, I mean the crowd, by the way, are all in favor of Leon Slater. That is no doubt. If you listen to the Impact crowd, they love Leon Slater. They love man like Doris as well. We mentioned that on the interview. Leon's partner from over here in England. He was incredible. Some of the stuff he was doing. He now has the twist of slate as homage to the Hardy Boys, and it's a more of a drill. So the twist of fate normally you land quite flat. He drills them down. So it's like a bit like it's kind of like a DDT, really an inverted DDT that he does when he drops them down, and then does that incredible 450 Swanton bomb. I mean that is just next level Swanton. I mean that, yeah. Sorry, Jeff, but that makes yours look dull. What Leon does, he hit that, a huge win though for Leon Slater, and we keep saying Leon Slater's got a chance at the X Division title at Rebellion on the 27th of April. That is a big win to go into Rebellion in a couple of weeks' time. Obviously, we do have Unbreakable first. By the way, you can catch all the action on TNA on the TNA Plus app. Big thanks to everyone who has literally doubled those numbers, by the way. The subscriber numbers of TNA have doubled over the last 12 months. A big thank you to you all for doing that. But the ones that haven't done, you seriously need to do it because you're missing out on some amazing, amazing action like the Leon Slaters of this world. So get yourself downloaded, get subscribed, get that championship package and start watching some incredible TNA action. It was actually quite good. When we come back from the break, we saw a highlight of an unbelievable match, Unbreakable in 2005, 20 years ago. And yes, I'm showing my age because I remember it like it was yesterday. AJ Styles, Samoa Joe, Christopher Daniels. Seriously, if you get the TNA Plus app, you can watch that match in its entirety. And I suggest for the new wrestling fans that perhaps wasn't around in 2005 or maybe too young in 2005 to watch wrestling, seriously, go and watch that match because if you like what you see on wrestling right now, and you like maybe the AJ Styles that you see, you like the Samoa Joes on AEW and whatnot, go and check this out because they put on some generational bangers in TNA wrestling. That is another reason to get yourself on the TNA Plus app. Now, back from that. It was a cinematic showdown. Santana has John Skyler tied up in a bunker. He starts crying. He says Ali, and Santana was like, Ali doesn't care about you. He says that Ali took one from him, and now he's gonna do the same. He takes people out one at a time. He takes a shovel, winds it up to bash Styler's head in. As Skyler flinches and cries, Santana stops and sends one more final warning to Skylar about Ali. It was I love those little bits that they do. The Macklin Eric Young stuff that they done was incredible as well. And again, TNA doing some great stuff right now, and that for me was another good bit. But we do get back into the action. It was Eddie Edwards with Alicia against Steve Macklin. Here comes the distractions again, and this does happen a lot during this match. There is a lot of distraction from Alicia Edwards, and this is where, for me, again, it's a little bit tedious now with the system. Little bit, you know, he does. There's just too much of it. Um, but Macklin does indeed get the upper hand. He goes for the spear to knock him down. Then the system come out. They pass Edwards the system ring. Eric Young and the Northern Armory then come out, but Eric Young stopped Judas and Williams from helping Macklin, and Eddie Edwards drills Macklin with a Boston knee party to pick up the victory on this. Again, this is it's just a bit frustrating that every system match, oh, fair enough, maybe not so. The other one in this match, yeah, the tag match didn't necessarily have interference. It had a cheating ending, which is fine. But how many times have we come on here and said, yeah, and this person got involved and that person got involved, and it just needs to be dulled down. I think that's the word. So not as much in. Surely the system don't need help every single match that they have, because that's really where it's feeling like at the minute. And it might just be, it might just be that, you know, me, because I've had a week of it on wrestling and I've seen it so many times. Um, I just don't know. Maybe it's me. Maybe it is me. I don't know. But yeah, don't like it. Don't like it too much. Anyway, moving on. So Tessa Blanchard this week looks like she was attacking one of Slamovich's trainers, that's a pensioner, really, about 70 years old. Masha Slamovich did come out, and so we saw a video of her a bit later on saying about the attack from Tessa Blanchard to one of her trainers. She's not very happy about it. More on that in a minute, because we now come to the announcement from Joe Hendry. Now, Santino Morella, you remember, said that Joe Hendry had some announcement to make, and he said you got to take the bad with the good. He said the bad news is the medical team have told him that he shouldn't compete at Rebellion. I think he's got some kind of shoulder injury, but he has told the medical team that he will compete at Rebellion, and he will defend his title against two of the biggest scumbags he's ever met in Ethan Page and Kazarian. He's vowed to walk out with the championship. But out comes Kazarian, and he's basically says that, he's got, I mean, for all intents and purposes, Joe Hendry's got a torn rotator cuff, or he's got a rotator cuff injury. Um, he basically says he's going to be the king of TNA. And he'll be at best at Rebellion. He's going to expose Ethan Page and finally get his hands on Joe Hendry and become the TNA World Heavyweight Champion. Which is a real shame if this is true. But Joe Hendry has said next week at Unbreakable, there's going to be a tag team match. And that tag team match will be a mixed tag team match. It's going to be Joe Hendry and the Knockouts champion Masha Slamovich against Kazarian and Tessa Blanchard at Unbreakable the week before Rebellion. Joe Hendry's wrestling at Unbreakable with an injury, and he's then going to wrestle at Rebellion, which this is maybe a big mistake here from Joe Hendry. And if the injury is severe in a torn rotator cuff, you generally need to have surgery for that. Now, remember when Cody Rhodes done his pec and he tore it off the bone, and they allowed him to compete because he couldn't really do any more damage to it? Is that the case with Joe Hendry? And if it is, I mean, he will definitely have to vacate or lose the championship if that's the case, which is a real shame. We're going to have to wait until next week to find out really how severe that injury is. And in fact, if it is severe enough, he will have to drop the title at Rebellion, which we don't want him to do, let's be honest. But we'll have to wait and see. But a huge tag team match made for Unbreakable, which we're going to get to in a minute. I'm just going to quickly run down the card for next week on TNA Wrestling. It's Elijah's got a message. What that message will be, we don't know. We'll find out what's next for Cody Deaner. We're going to see Jakara Jackson from NXT against former NXT UK is Danny Luna of Spitfire. We're going to see Jasmine Nix of Fatal Influence against Zaya Brookside. And Brian Myers goes one-on-one with the youngest in charge, Leon Slater. That is another huge one for Leon Slater next week. But let's get into these Unbreakable predictions. We're going to do all but one because we don't know what the other one is. This is the order as of Wikipedia, not the match order. So, we've got one semi-final match. Oh, I see. Stupid me not looking at this. We will be able to do all matches because the first two on here are the other two semi-final matches in the tournament to crown the international champion. So stupid, I didn't see it. Right. Eddie Edwards, Ace Austin, and Steve Macklin. I am going for Ace Austin in that. I think that's going to be a great match, by the way. Should be tons of fun in there. Just Steve, because I'm looking at the other match now and I'm thinking you could quite easily put Steve Macklin and another one from the other match in it. So anyway, I'm still going for Ace Austin. Zachary Wentz, JDC, and Eric Young. Now you can see why I'm thinking, does Macklin and Young get involved and they go through to the triple threat final? Do they put it on Ace Austin? Just because... TNA, why do you do this? Why do you make things difficult? Because there is a simple, I mean, you could put two of the system guys in there. I don't think that's going to happen. Oh, man. I need to think about that quickly. We're going to go to the next one. Mike Santana and the Hardys against Nick Nemeth, Ryan Nemeth, and Mustafa Ali. I am definitely going for Santana and the Hardys in that one. I think that is, Santana is, blue chipping his way to title glory at TNA at some point, and him and the Hardys will be quite a formidable team, and I'm really looking forward to that six-man tag match, to be honest with you. Joe Hendry and Masha against Frankie and Tessa. We don't know the severity of Joe Hendry's injury. I personally believe in this one, we're going to be seeing Kazarian and Tessa Blanchard pick up the victory. It's not because Joe Hendry's injured either. I think momentum going into Rebellion should be with the challengers rather than the champions. It would make more sense. So for me, Kazarian and Blanchard pick up the victory in that particular match. Barbed Wire Massacre, Mance Warner. We're obviously with Steph Delander. Again, you can see her interview on this channel by clicking below in the special guest interviews against Sami Callihan. I think Warner wins this. I really do. I'm sorry, Sammy, because I love Callahan. I think he's great, but I think Warner gets the edge on this one somehow. Anyway, I was trying to long this out because of these triple threats. Oh, am I going to change my mind or not? And it was ridiculous. I didn't even tell you who I thought was going to win the second one. Yeah, I'm going to change my mind, and I'm probably going to end. Oh, do I? Because I really think Ace Austin's going to win it, but I just look at the other two, and I just think it storyline sense would say Macklin and Young go in there. That's where I'm looking, and I'm thinking storyline perspective that works. Now Ace Austin goes through, Eric Young does go through, and Ace Austin wins the tournament. That's what I'm going for. I know I'm going to end up regretting that decision, and I'm going to be saying I should have gone with Steve Macklin. But that's what I think. And then Ace Austin goes on and beats Eric Young and AJ Francis in the final. There we go. You can watch all that action live on the TNA Plus app. As I said, get it downloaded, get subscribed, and get on that action because you're missing out on some great action on TNA. You really, really are. So make sure you do. We'll be back next week with the Impact and the Unbreakable Review action packed isn't the word next week for TNA. It will come at you a lot earlier next Friday as well because it's Easter over here. Like I said, crack open an egg like my head and enjoy me on your Friday morning next week. But guys, until then, you have been watching the Hitting the Turnbuckle podcast with me, your host, Adam Cousins. See you, if it's just for TNA, I'll see you guys next week as we cross that line. Bye bye.